What's good, peeps? Thanks always for passing by the channel. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. I want to briefly talk about Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook for a few minutes. Both fighters this week have actually spoke about the fight again. Terence Crawford was interviewed by Michelle Joy Phelps. I think he said something along the lines of Kell Brook's weight is an issue, but that he would happily dust Kell off. Kell obviously responded on social media. Eddie Hearn also spoke about the fight this week, said some very interesting things that we're going to touch on. I briefly spoke about the possibility of this fight after the Crawford versus Khan fight. Kell Brook was obviously in attendance, angling for a fight with Terence Crawford. It looked like at the time that could be a fight that would happen. Crawford seemed happy about it. He spoke about it. Brook spoke about it. Bob Arum also spoke about it. There was a lot of talk, I don't know if you guys know this, about Brook versus Crawford prior to Khan getting it. So there's definitely been discussions about Crawford versus Brook happening. I know a lot of Crawford fans, I'm a Crawford fan, would actually like me to speak about Crawford versus Spence or Crawford versus Manny Pacquiao. The truth is, those fights, and it's awful to say, but those fights are a million miles away. Pac-Man's never going to happen, right? Crawford just simply isn't an attractive proposition for Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao at this stage of his career doesn't care about belts, certainly doesn't care about the WBO belt, only cares about the biggest check. And hence why he signed with PBC. ESPN simply can't offer him that money. So that fight's not going to happen. The Errol Spence fight is such a big fight for me. Maybe not for casual fans, but for hardcore fans, it's such a big fight. And that's the problem. There isn't much casual interest. Both fighters would probably want, I don't know, 8 figures, right? 10 million each. And there simply isn't enough money in that fight. Terence Crawford just isn't a pay-per-view attraction, right? Both of these pay-per-view fights haven't done well. Victor Postal, 50,000 buys. Amir Khan, 150,000. I'm not having, though, that he isn't a pay-per-view draw. He's not had the right dance partner. You need a dance partner. It's almost unfair to him because he hasn't had one yet. Amir Khan was done. People weren't interested, and nobody knows Victor Postal. Errol Spence is growing to be a pay-per-view draw, but I think for both of them to get 10 million plus, this fight would need to do over 600,000 pay-per-view buys. It isn't doing that. And then you can make the same argument for, I don't know, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, in the sense that they're over PBC. They're not going to come over to ESPN, and Terence Crawford isn't going over to PBC to fight them. So, I mean, you're left with Kell Brook, right? There aren't that many more attractive names at 147, if Kell Brook is still even 147. I actually don't think that ESPN can afford Kell Brook. The only way they can afford this fight is if they chuck it on pay-per-view. And it's not a pay-per-view fight. It's not a pay-per-view fight. Kell Brook versus Terence Crawford would do a lot worse than Terence Crawford versus Amir Khan. And that done 150,000 buys. Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook in America would probably do about 80,000 buys. And that simply won't cut it. It simply won't cut it, right? And I don't think they can afford to pay Kell Brook the money he wants and afford to pay Terence Crawford the money he wants and just chuck it on regular ESPN Plus, wherever it is. So it ain't going to happen. The only way the fight could happen is if Eddie Hearn gets involved. And Eddie Hearn this week has distanced himself from the fight. He said, look, happy for the fight to happen, but it's for ESPN to deal with. Didn't want nothing to do with it. And didn't want to offer Sky Sports money, which would mean it being here in the UK and being on Sky Sports box office, just because he knows Kell's not a draw and knows Crawford, right? It wouldn't do good numbers over here. Didn't even want to offer DAZN money because he knows it won't equate to more signups with DAZN. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the situation Terence Crawford finds himself in right now. Now, if Crawford was somewhat of a draw, a guy that almost guaranteed himself 200,000 buys by himself, then yeah, they can make these fights happen. He can't. The only reason, and people might bring this up as an argument against what I just said, that they can afford to pay Tyson Fury, obviously because Tyson Fury's last 2 fights haven't been pay-per-view, is because they're paying his opponents peanuts. Hence the names and levels of his opponents. I mean, how much do you think they paid Tom Schwartz? How much do you think they paid Otto Wallin? I mean, these guys ain't getting money. Kell Brook has a figure, and that figure is probably around £3 to £4 million. Could be that much. I mean, Kell Brook might need to minimize the offer a little bit, hence why he probably hasn't had a fight recently. But that's his figure. Terence Crawford's figure might be double that, plus a bit more, hence why they can't afford it. Tough times for Crawford, people. Tough times for Crawford. Peace.